How directors trick actors. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwall with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. That's a birthday sombrero. Brooke just had her birthday this past week. And now on to our topic. How directors trick actors. Okay, let me first confess, this is a provocative title for a video, but it's appropriate for the following discussion. And if you missed our previous video, I alluded to this concept last week. Let's set the stage, as it were. You booked the job, hooray! And now you're hoping that once you get the set, you're able to recreate that magic you had in that callback or on that self-tape that got you the job. Now, for this discussion, we're mostly talking about the smaller roles, the one-liners, the five-liners, the co-stars, occasionally some of those beefy co-stars that have a few scenes. So you get the set and all those chrysalises in your stomach turn into butterflies because either just nerves got the best of you, or they changed the script on you last second, or they got weird blocking or a complicated prop, etc. The point is that from the director's point of view, something is off during that first take or even first few takes. What happens next will depend on their gut instinct of how well you know yourself. As we talked about in last week's video about how the Hollywood stars are made, when you do the work, and it is work, to understand how the world perceives you and how, by extension, this director perceives you, that new sense of self-awareness becomes your greatest asset. When a director knows that you know yourself, they can be straightforward and literal with their redirect, then head back to Video Village and watch the magic happen. On the other hand, when they sense that you don't have a full grasp on how you're perceived and how your performance is being perceived, well, then that creates a disconnect, a very dangerous one, and they have to proceed with caution. It's at this point that an experienced director may use some psychological tricks to get you where you need to be in your performance. And while there may be several different categories of tricks, and even ones I'm not aware of that are being used on me, I'm going to break this down into two major categories. The first category is when, let's say, you bumbled some lines or you looked a little nervous, but not by much. And so after that first less than stellar take, the director might come up to you and say, okay, Matt, that was good. I like what you're doing. In fact, that was a really good take, but we need to fix something with the camera. So we're just going to go back to one and do it again. In full disclosure, when I've directed things, I have used this trick. When a director says this, they're trying to be overly sensitive to not put the onus or the pressure or the burden on you for messing up the take. Because if they're right and you are nervous, and that is sort of the reason why you bumbled the lines or just overall looked like you hadn't found the groove yet, then by them telling you that you messed up the take, that will just send you on a spiral into more nerves. And the director knows this, so they try to avoid letting you know that the reason they're doing another take is because you were nervous. In other words, by buying you some time and blaming it on the camera department, they're giving you the space and the time to get it together. Because imagine the opposite. You actually are nervous, but the director says, okay, cut. You were really nervous on that take, weren't you? Hey, guys, did everyone see how nervous Matt was on that take? Huh. Geez, well, stop. Don't do that. Okay, good? Yeah, all right, back to one, everyone. Let's shoot something. That would make anyone more nervous. So by pretending that there was something technically wrong with the take, the director is doing you a solid. But as an aside, sometimes there actually was something wrong with camera, and it's hard to tell the difference. This is where it's tremendously helpful to understand the lingo that is being said on set by all the departments. That way, before the director even comes over to talk to you, you have a little bit more insight on what is actually going on around you. And here's the second major category of psychological trick that directors might be using on you while you're on set. And it's when you're not nervous. In fact, it's when, after a couple takes, the director's thinking about the choices you're making and realizing that they're just not working. Maybe they're not working for the overall story that is trying to be told, or maybe you're just not going far enough with certain choices that you've made. For instance, let's just say that the scene requires you to be angry, like really angry. And if you don't, the entire scene falls apart. So using this example, the director, thinking that they're going to have to trick you into the right performance, may come up to you and say, Matt, that was great. I really like what you're doing there. So for fun, let's do a take where you just go full on road rage because we got that first one already in the can. Love it. Just for fun, we're just going to explore that. I want to see the volcano explode. Spoiler alert, likely they don't actually want to see the volcano explode or for you to go full road rage. They just sense that you're locked up, that there's a lack of freedom in your performance. So by exaggerating how far they want you to go, you're at a 1 on the anger scale, and they say, hey, go to an 11. They're really expecting and hoping that you'll just land around a 4 or a 5. You see, this trick is learned over time because the director in question has likely worked with a lot of green actors and has had to figure out ways to get the actor to just open up, to just unlock that extra 10% of that emotion. And they figured out that if they just exaggerate how much they want, most of the time the actor will shift from where they were to that extra 10% and find the sweet spot that the director was looking for the entire time. I mean, I've seen it happen so many times on set. And yes, I've used this trick myself. Namely, you ask the actor for 10% more or some other analogy that is equivalent to that, and they only give you 1% more. So you ask for 10% more again, and they only give you 1 more percent. And so instead of wasting a lot of time trying to get them step by step closer to where they need to be, you exaggerate and say, give me 1,000% more. And sure enough, they just get to that 10%, which is exactly where you wanted them to begin with. Now, to be clear, this is a liability as an actor. You want to be 100% in tune with your instrument. And speaking of musical instruments, let's use an analogy. Let's say you're in a band and you're on guitar, and you're playing a G, not the chord, just the note for this discussion. And whoever's in charge of the music says, "Hey, Matt, great, I like that G. Let's try a C," which the C would be much further up the fretboard. And instead of doing that, all you end up doing is sort of shifting within the fret, which, if you notice, is the exact same note. To you, you think you're doing something different. It feels different. But to them, what they're hearing is exactly the same. So they have to ask for it again. Matt, let's try that C. So this time you kind of get the hint, oh, I need to be doing more. So you move up. But that's just a G sharp. And so forth and so on. So instead of waiting for you to step up this fretboard over and over and over again, they ask for an E, which is further up the fretboard. And what happens? You give them a C. Now, sometimes a director will assume that you need to be tricked in this way. So, going back to the anger example, they say, give me road rage, go full on Hulk. And then you do. And their reaction might be, oh, well, yeah, that was full on road rage. Or in the guitar example, you actually jump straight to that E and really they wanted the C, and so they say, yeah, that was an E. Well, let's try a C. Let's find something in between." And the great thing is, moving forward, that director will start to talk to you differently. They'll be more straightforward and literal with you and what they need on that next take, and they won't feel the need to trick you or exaggerate just to get you to where they think you need to be. That's the actor you should strive to be, the one that doesn't need to be coddled or handled on the way to finding a performance that will work for the vision of the director. You want to be on the level with the director so that both of you can quickly converge to that performance that will make everyone happy. Now, at the start of this, I mentioned that these examples of psychological tricks were mainly geared towards those roles that were one-liners or five-liners or small co-stars. Occasionally, this can happen for actors who are booking guest star roles, recurring guest stars, even series regulars, or top of show on a film. Believe me, I've met and worked with some big Hollywood Oscar-winning stars that don't seem to have a full grasp on their own craft, how they're being seen or perceived by others. Sometimes it's because they're oblivious. Sometimes it's because they're nervous or unsure of themselves, just like you or me. The only difference is when you're that high in the call sheet, the director is going to give you the time and the space, if necessary, to get it together. As a corollary to these two categories of tricks that I discussed, there are some directors who fancy themselves geniuses and that, for whatever reason, actors couldn't possibly understand them if they were to just speak directly to them. And so they just think they always need to dance around the thing they're trying to say to sort of gently guide you or back you in or trick you into the performance they're looking for. Maybe they're just trying to not give you a line reading. I respect that. Most actors, including myself, don't want to be given line readings. Maybe it's that they have taken an acting class, maybe literally just one class, and they're trying to mimic what that acting teacher did to get certain performances out of the students. You know the teacher. They stop everything and look at you and say, "Hey, Matt, so did you ever have a dog growing up?" Yeah. What was his name? Uh, Sparkles. And what did he like to eat? Dog food. Start the scene, Matt. And while that may work, even on set, my argument is that you should strive to be the actor that doesn't need that on set. That is great in an acting class when you're first getting started and you don't really know how to access those different parts of yourself. But by the time you are on a big major set, you shouldn't need to be tricked into a performance. Your goal, in my mind, is to be self-sufficient. You're there to say to the director, "Hey, I got this. Paramedic 3 is safely in my hands. Go worry about the thousand other things that people are asking you about." It may sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. When you're booking these co-star roles or any role where you've got maybe one scene, you're a utility character, your character's name is just the occupation, like paramedic number 3, the director needs to know that they can trust you, that you can do what you did in that audition so that they don't have to worry about you, so that they don't have to direct you, so that they certainly don't have to trick you into the performance they need. You need to be self-sufficient. Full stop. And before I wrap this up, I want to cover a sort of related topic that usually plagues young actors or new actors to this business, myself included. And that is, you're at a point in your career where maybe you've done some small budget things, some independent films, maybe some commercials and whatnot, but you haven't booked that first big gig. You haven't booked that network show or that full budget film. And you find yourself sitting in acting class or at home or lamenting to a friend or a teacher, if they would just give me a chance, if they would just book me as that series regular or as the lead in that $150 million movie, they would see how amazingly talented I am. Then I could show them. If you've had thoughts like that, if you're having thoughts like that, you're not alone. Like I said, I've been there. But unless you've done all the work that I talked about in last week's video, link in the show notes below, and you're 100% confident that you do not need to be coddled or handled by a director, then hear me on this. You are not ready. If that dream booking were to come before you were ready, it will not end well. Hey, I believe you when you say that you're talented and special, but think about that med student who is hoping to become a surgeon one day. If they were suddenly asked to perform open heart surgery before they've ever even learned how to make a first incision, would you want them to be your surgeon? But before you decide, they know that they are destined to be the best surgeon ever to hold a scalpel. Of course, you'd say no, because even though they believe they will be there one day, and they probably will, they're not even ready to scrub in yet. In short, do the work. Get your body, your instrument, your mind, and your spirit all in the right place. Be ready so that you don't have to get ready when that opportunity does come. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.